In today's AI world, personal branding is more important than ever. Watch this episode to know how to get started.
So my name is Malthi and I'm based out of Bangalore. I've worked in large, primarily North American companies, except for SAP, which is a German one. So spent about 13 years at SAP, then Intuit, then PayPal. I also worked in Society Generale. So a large amount of my experience, about 25 years, out of which 22 years was a corporate job. 10 years in fintech, I would say, and a fair amount in large B2B enterprise organizations. So I was a techie for the first 8, 9 years, and then I transitioned into product management without really knowing what it was. This was back in 2008 when in India it was not so prominent. And last 16 years, 17 years, that's exactly what I've been doing, building products. See, what has happened in the last 2, 3 years is that slowly all organizations are trying to shift to AI first strategy, right? Now, while I have 16, 20 years of experience of building products, if I now go to startups, I cannot be saying the same playbook or frameworks of how I built products, let's say 5, 7 years back, right? They have to start seeing me that, okay, you know what? She can also help us build our AI first strategy. She can also think with the latest technology. Now, when you're working in a company, it is easy. You are allocated a project, you are responsible for initiative. So automatically you go deep. Now, in my case, or probably also that Sarika is doing, and many of you who are entrepreneurs, you have to invest on yourself. You have to figure out ways that how you can upskill yourself. How do you learn that craft? Now, one of the challenges which I saw that I was feeling was that a lot of investors are pumping money into tech startups, deep tech startups, right? So one of the activities which I did earlier this year was that just while I kind of been teaching AI PM courses for almost well over a year now, but how do I make these startups perceive me like that? So very effectively for 3, 4 months, I would just keep posting about AI, AI, AI. Then what happened was that I started getting a lot of invites on podcasts, in events, in different speaker sessions. I will prioritize all AI related speaking opportunities. So what happened was that suddenly for what I saw, once I did 2 or 3 events, subsequently all speaking opportunities that were coming my way were only for AI. So that helped me to kind of position myself saying that. And the other thing which I did was that since I have this asset of, I also have a Substack newsletter with about 3,000 followers. I write regularly. That was another asset I leveraged in order to start writing. So I kind of started to invite these AI experts onto my platforms. I would learn from them. I will build on what they had shared and my own knowledge. So that kind of helped me to this thing. So sometimes you have to plant it, uh, depending upon what your intent is, and sometimes you have to just let it, flow organically. So this has been my more recent planned, AI branding persona for myself. And 3 years back, so I actually want to kind of touch upon a couple of stories in my career because I do believe those have been things which have kind of helped me move to the next level of building my brand, though it was not like planned. So what happened was that I think during my SAP days, especially when I started to become a product manager, SAP runs something called FCOM, which is more like a sales, offsites. And then they run something called as SAP Tech Ed. It is a large one, yeah. So I think those were my, formative years. This was, I'm talking about back in 2009, 2010, when I was still in my first 10 years of my career. Very formative years when I think it kind of gave me a taste of what it is to, just go to the stage, present, build that, depth in what you are going to talk about. And that was my first exposure of literally walking into the stage, presenting in front of, let's say, 300, 400 odd people with all the butterflies in my stomach. Those were my, early years. And after that, I moved to Intuit. Now, when I started working with Intuit, that was the time when Intuit was very, very active in Grace Hopper, right? And I remembering volunteering a lot with our Women in Tech, volunteering a lot with GHCI. I submitted my first paper for GHCI, which got selected, which was in those days, the Ubers and the Airbnb was still very, very new. So this whole concept of building platform products, network effects, this was a very, very new concept, and we would buy books and see wherever we could find those articles to kind of talk about it. So I think I got my first taste of where people outside my immediate team, into other teams. Intute had like about 1,000 people in India. And because I started to mentor, because I started to volunteer with these kind of, org-wide initiatives, I think that was my first taste where I realized that it is important for you to get out of your own, day job and just think, if I just do my job well, my work will be recognized. I'll be due for that next promotion. I think that was my first taste. And I think I have been just very fortunate that I have worked in companies competing for the first two spots of Great Place to Work, especially between SAP Labs and Intune. I think for almost 6 years, either one of them was in number one and number two. So that also means that you were kind of surrounded with people who are willing to give. You are supported by policies and initiatives, which lets you thrive in that. Yeah. So just kind of talking about my first taste of what it is, where people outside your immediate circle recognize you and kind of thank you for what you have done for them. I think that was the first taste. Anyway, long story short, then I moved on to join Society Generale. This is a very important story in my personal branding journey. So what happened was that when I was interviewing with Society Generale, at that point of time, I think I had about close to 16, 17 years of experience. And I was interviewing for a SVP position over there. And I was joining them as a chief product evangelist, because Society Generale is a banking and a financial services organization, right? It's not really a product company. So they wanted somebody who comes from very strong product background and come and help their digital transformation initiatives, their innovation team to kind of set up some processes, bring in some product thinking and all that. So I remember this recruiter asking me, do you have a LinkedIn account? And I said yes. And how many of you are very active on LinkedIn? Okay, when I say very active on LinkedIn, at least go to LinkedIn every day, at least once. Can I just see a raise of hands? 5, 6. Okay. All right. How many of you write at least, let's say, 2 posts in a week?
The growth circle post count.
No. I mean, I think yes. You are the this thing, right? Okay. So Sindhu for sure, yes. Four people, is it? And this was the days back in 2016 when I think most of the time in my feed, LinkedIn would say that your friend is now connected to this, so you should be able to connect to this. The number of posts and all were like still not, the algorithm was nowhere close to the rich that it is today, right? So I remember they asking that, do you write on LinkedIn? And I was very confused. Why are you even asking me for this? And then when I joined them, I was told that it is very important for leaders in the organization to be very active on social media. It is like a double win-win, right? Because how much can an organization keep doing tom-tom about themselves, right? There's only this much they can call in their own handle. And obviously, if any employees are talking about their organization, it is very organic and it is very genuine count, right? So the first point, the key takeaway, which I want you to talk about here is that especially women, and this is a study which is proven, right? Women want to feel probably 9 out of 10 very confident about anything that they post, even it is as simple as applying for a job. If they see 10 pointers are given, they want to make sure that at least for 9 of them, they are, the checklist is okay. Whereas for a man, probably even a 5 or 6, they'll apply for it, right? So a lot of people that I talk to, one of the reasons they say that, yes, we want to be more visible. We want to talk about the goodness of the work that we do, but we are definitely caught by our own self-doubt. We are not sure whether the content which we are putting, is it really great out there? What will people say? Is it good enough? Right? So we are all trapped in our own imposter syndrome, right? So I think the first thing which I want to kind of say is that we all have gone through it. I go through it even today, being very, very active on social media. By the way, I've just put in my LinkedIn link. Would love to connect with all of you and would appreciate all of you to also share your LinkedIn link in the chat so that we can all connect to each other, right? That's the first step. So the first thing which I really want to say is that the only person who is limiting you from going out there with full blast is you yourself, right? So I think the first step for personal branding is to just get out of there. Am I good enough? There is never a perfect situation, right? Like, I mean, there are so many startup founders. We know that there is never you can never take out a perfect product. The only way to build a product towards perfection is by pushing it out, giving it to your customers, and then your customers give you that feedback. You have to treat yourself also as a product. And for that, you need to do one most important thing. You have to trust yourself, right? You have to trust yourself. You can probably have a couple of accountability partners that I call, for the first month, for example, if you decide, you know what, I'm going to put out one article, I'm going to put out one post, have some of these accountability partners where to whom you can, just push out your article draft form, say that, hey, you know what do you think about it? Is it good enough to go? Can I add more pictures to it? Right? But just get started. So the first thing I would say is that please overcome your own this aspect. And the second thing is that please have one or two accountability partners and get started with that. Yeah, Sarika, you wanted to add something?
Sorry, I was speaking on mute. I just want to add on the accountability partner. These days, you could also use the likes of ChatGPT as your accountability partner, right? It's very easy. And the good part is that these LLM models, they are built to be positive and help you. So they will never be sort of putting you down. You don't have to have a fear of any kind of judgment or what is somebody going to think about me. So you could use that as your first filter if, like, I know people have their own sort of doubts in their heads. It really helps.
Correct. The only side of caution I would say is that make sure you create the first version and use ChatGPT or whatever LLM you're using only to fine tune it. Yeah, but that's a great point. Yes, not everything. So for example, I'm an individual and I work for Society General, right? Now, not necessarily every content which I put out there has to be for my company, right? Okay. See, it is a reality that today a lot of us are recognized by the titles that we carry, by the companies that we work for, right? Especially when you are getting started on this journey, maybe it is a good idea to start leveraging on that. But eventually the idea should be, I cannot be putting 10 posts in a month all about Society General. Right? What is the value that I'm adding? Today we did this event, tomorrow we did this event, third day we did this. It cannot be just all about that. It's like, I took 10 certifications in a month and I'm saying, yeah, I'm celebrating. People will then stop reacting to it. So it is also, again, it is very important that when you are putting a content out there, what is the value that you are adding? See, it is a reality today, Srilekha, that LinkedIn is just one of the channels, right? And now LinkedIn has also become like a TikTok or like a Instagram, where you have video content, you have audio content, you have text content, right? So when people are bombed with so much of plethora of content, why would somebody pause at your content and read it? Because it need to be adding some kind of a value, right? So while I started to talk about LinkedIn as a content, but you could choose what is your medium. There are people who do it only on Instagram. There are people who only write articles. There are people who especially focuses on short form content on LinkedIn, right? But okay, so now this is a great point where I would like to now segue into it, is that before you start thinking about that, which is the channel where I go, there has to be some kind of an introspection that has to be done. That what is that I stand for? What do I want to be known as? Right? what is the kind of depth, expertise that I have? What can I offer to the people? Because eventually, whether it is a product, whether it is a tech, others have to be able to get some value out of it. That is very, very important, right? So when you are thinking about your personal branding, for example, today, if you are thinking about Steve Jobs versus when you are thinking about Modi, what are the different things that comes into your mind? Let's do like one word. When you think about Modi, what is that one word that comes into your mind? Let's put it in the chat. What is brand Modi? Made in India. Okay. Bharatiya. Okay. Okay. Politicians, both of them, Steve Jobs as well as him. Okay. Political. Okay. Digital India. So, see, the point that I'm trying to drive here is that it is not necessarily about the person who or she is. Modi may have a lot of quality. For example, he himself, for example, one of the things which I find him is that he's somebody who, and again, this is my very personal perspective, is that I truly see him as a leader, somebody who's extremely assertive, right? So the point that I'm trying to drive here is that brand only does not mean a trait. Brand could be the work that you do. So it has to be thought through that what is the brand that you want to establish out there. I'll take a pause here before I move ahead. Shubha, you had a point?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if we are very new to LinkedIn, we haven't shared anything yet. We are very new to the content industry, if you can say. So, can we share general topics like how we are feeling today, like something positive about maybe something positive towards basically our attitude towards something, or something general topic, nothing related to company, nothing related to politics or something. So can we carry on like that?
See, it is absolutely okay to start with generic, especially when you are just getting started. What sets you apart eventually is that what is the exclusivity, what is the value that people are getting out of your content, right? So there are a lot of things, right? There is a writing style, there is a topic that you talk about. But I think the other aspect also that you need to do is that you need to be consistent on it, right? It cannot be that you write once and then for next 20 days you are gaia.
Yeah.
So it has to be a kind of, whether you are making YouTube videos or Insta videos or whether you are writing content, there has to be consistency. See, I don't know if, for example, there are a couple of people whom I follow, right? Again, in the tech world. For example, there's a lady called Ranjini Mani. She is a Gen AI leader with Microsoft. Okay. Now, no matter where Ranjini is, Ranjini will post every single day. And she has been doing it very consistently for the last 4 or 5 years. And she also writes that what she loves to write about. For example, in her case, she picks up 2-3 topics: leadership, technology, innovation. So my suggestion here would be that if you put it very, very generic, then probably LinkedIn is not even going to prioritize you in your algorithm, right? So you try to pick up a couple of topics that what if I go to Shubhra's content, what is she going to write about? For example, if I talk about myself, I have been a very passionate product person. So I always write about product. I always write about women in tech. I write a lot about leadership, right? So these are, even if I'm thinking, somehow I kind of circle back to these topics, right? So for example, when Sindhu is writing about entrepreneurship. Sindhu is writing about technology, right? So if you keep yourself too horizontal, you may not be able to pick up a niche. So try to find 3 or 4 topics about which you can start writing. So that way, what happens, people know what kind of a content to expect from your site. Yeah. So
Some theme has to be there.
that's right. Because that helps people to resonate with you. Again, if I go back, you need to do that reflection, right? See, again, you need to think about it. personal branding is not a short-term game. It's a long-term game. So you also have to do an introspection. How do you want yourself to be known as? Right? Are you wanting to be known as somebody who is, so for example, if Sindhu is a brand, I know she has mentored a lot of you. If you have to think about Sindhu, what is one personal brand that comes into your mind?
A mentor. She's a great
Mhm.
mentor to me.
Right. So see, so it
Energy.
is not necessarily that, very cautiously Sindhu thought that I have to build a brand like that. But
Yeah.
it is also represented by the kind of activities that she's doing.
Yeah.
Right? Probably she has signed up, let's say, for GHCI to mentor people. So what happens is that there is a very interesting things. I don't know. I don't do all these things myself, but there is something called as manifestation, right? They say that what you put out there attracts the universe and it comes back to you. So if she would have put out there that, I went to the school and I mentored these girls, so somehow people already start to perceive that, what, Sindhu likes to give it back to the community. She likes to mentor people. She derives pleasure in doing that. Right? So while in your mind, you are just writing what you have done and what you love. But what happens is that in somebody else's mind, it is building your brand, consciously or subconsciously. So that is why you need to be mindful as to what are you putting out there. For example, when I think about Sarika, technology, innovation, right? Even a writer, because she writes beautiful blogs, right? So that comes into your mind.
Got
See,
it.
yes, if I have to just pick up, my own journey, since many of you wouldn't know that, right? I mean, so what happened very interestingly was that when I went to Society General, my writing on LinkedIn was like very, very sparse. I was probably writing, let's say, once in a month. That too, if I have changed my job or I have done a certification, or Intuit would publish something and I'll just do a repost of that, nothing more than that. And there was a very conscious call which my boss said that, you know what, we do not have so many women representation, number one. So we want you to build that this thing for us, saying that there is a woman in tech. So I ended up founding Women in Tech within SocGen. I ended up signing us for GHCI. So there were a lot of, and see, it is not, building a brand is not always outside the organizations. There is tremendous amount of opportunity for building a brand within the organizations, right? And something which is very, very tangible. So I am not even saying building a brand doesn't mean that from tomorrow you start, pushing out post on LinkedIn. You could start small. You could just look around maybe within your business unit. You could nominate yourself for some organization-wide or site-wide initiatives. You could start doing smaller things where you said, you know what, every year we are hiring so many people. I would like to mentor some of the new joinees. I am willing to take trainings for my business unit for the new hires, right? Whatever is your interest. If there are hackathons happening, you could say that, I'm a techie. I would love to see how I can contribute to the hackathons which are happening in the organizations, right? So all I'm trying to say is that start small, start within your BU, within your team, within your organizations, but figure out how much time you have in hand and what is the best way that you can contribute. And you will see that, think about it like a ripple effect. You start from a smaller circle and, you kind of go big. So in my case, what happened, my boss said, we need somebody to kind of lead this chapter for us. So in context of that, panel discussion, which I did, which was without GHCI, because all there, I nominated myself. But this was the first one where I got an invite. So that day was like that month, this thing was very, very special for me, right? So, but what happens is that once that happens, people start identifying, and it is absolutely okay. I remember I was trembling. I was rehearsing my lines. I was asking the moderator for the questions again and again. It is okay, but it is important for you to prepare, because only preparation makes you perfect, right? And then my boss said that, you know what, we want you to write a little bit more on the social media, and you get a bunch of few more women to start writing on that. So that is how I actually started my writing journey. And I then discovered that I could do a decent job with writing. And I started writing articles. I started writing LinkedIn posts. I started, so beyond my release notes, I started writing a lot of other things apart from my product documentation, I started writing a lot of those things. So that was actually a game changer for me. Then I got connected to women in product groups. I got connected to a lot of other women in tech. And I remember hosting our first women in tech event within SocGen. So then suddenly what happened? People started recognizing me, right? Not only that, do not expect that, one event, two events, people will start recognizing. This is a consistent effort that has to go in. Another important thing which I did was that I realized that if next opportunity has to come my way, it has to be because people have to realize that what is that I can offer, what is the goodness of the work that I do. So it is important to showcase your work, whatever is possible for you to showcase customers, benefit, whatever your mentorship that you are doing. It is important why not to brag? It is absolutely okay to brag, but with a subtle humbleness, right? So that is another challenge which I see. I found myself struggling to brag about myself. So that was another hurdle, which I had to kind of overcome. So go ahead and brag yourself. You've put in the effort, you've done the stuff, go and brag yourself, right? That is important. So all I'm saying is that find what is your purpose, find what is that you are good at. And a lot of times it is about discovery. I mean, I think it is important to step out of that, your own shadow or your manager's shadow and just talk about your work and what you could offer, right? I think that is the key takeaway, and very well said.
Hi, I totally resonate with the questions that Shubhra and Srilekha said. Like when I started off, I was like, I'm barely into the job. What am I supposed to write on LinkedIn? I started off with posting I worked in a very nascent startup. So we were the brand for the company also. They made us post something or the other, like once in 2 weeks. The marketing team was behind all the founding employees. But what started there, I relate with the it's okay to say no post. I wrote something with respect to sales. I'm not very pushy, but I was doing sales. I wanted to do ethical sales, like not very pushy. If the customer needs it, I'll make sure they find the value and sell it. It started with that random post, and after that, audience started telling me what they liked and all. The more likes you get, the more impressions you get. There were some really kind people who reached out to me and said, I like this part of what you wrote. So it folds out. All I had to do was show up, which took me a lot of time initially. But starting anything that we feel strongly about, like any authentic point that even our friends naturally recognize in us, we can start with that, is what I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I probably want to kind of share something which I did very consciously. So typically, branding and all is more like a byproduct, is what I always saw. So anyway, fast forward today. So after 2022, I kind of left my day job, PayPal, and I started on my solopreneurship journey. Last 3.5 years, I've been mentoring and working with startups as a fractional CPO. Been working as a product management trainer, coach for some of the product leaders. I am also a visiting, what we call as professor of practice at a couple of B schools. And very interestingly, I started a new project which was hosting my podcast. I have no clue about what podcast does. So I started in February last year, and it has been a huge learning. And in turn, it also helped me to put a like a brand out there. My idea was to just network with founders and basically building my pipeline, but it turned out to be much more larger than that, right? And but anyway, I want to kind of talk about one very recent activity which I did.
Hi, I totally resonate with the questions that Shubhra and Srilekha said. Like when I started off, I was like, I'm barely into the job. What am I supposed to write on LinkedIn? I started off with posting I worked in a very nascent startup. So we were the brand for the company also. They made us post something or the other, like once in 2 weeks. The marketing team was behind all the founding employees. But what started there,
so yeah, those are some of the things. I mean, I think it is a lot also about surround yourself with people who have done that, learn from them. It is absolutely okay to make mistakes. Don't be hell-bent on having a very neat post, very neat article. There is a place called edit. You can always improvise on that. Yeah. Or the other thing which I have learned is that if you're scared of doing it by alone, do a partnership. work with somebody who brings in some kind of an expertise, you bring in some kind of an expertise. So then you can, publish that article together. So figure out what works for you, or even at work, right? We are talking about building those internal brands. So probably find somebody whom you could shadow, find somebody who already has a good personal brand, how they have done it, start contributing with them, and eventually you'll find your own path. The other thing which I have seen really works is that once you start volunteering, whether it is a woman in product, woman in sales, whatever is your area, woman in tech, I think that also gives you a lot of confidence, because then you are kind of volunteering, you are going ahead, you are probably doing emceeing, you are probably doing moderating a panel discussion. Those kind of things also gives you a lot of confidence. And then when you feel confident, you can be on the other side of the table where you could be a speaker in a panel discussion. So what is that one thing today that we want to do in October? We are almost 20th of September. We can even use the next 10 days. So what is that one thing that each one of you think you will do differently to build your personal brand? Let's put it in the chat. Internal branding, external branding, social, building your thought leadership, whatever it is. But I think the most important thing is to just get started.